The hospital room was dim, filled with the rhythmic beeping of machines that had kept Sarah alive for months. For over half a year, doctors had whispered about the slim chances of her waking up. Family members visited less frequently, convinced she would never open her eyes again. But on a rainy Tuesday morning, her eyelids fluttered. Nurses gasped, rushing to her side. Sarah's lips trembled, her voice hoarse from disuse. And the very first words she forced out of her broken body sent shivers through the room. "I know who killed my children." The nurse froze, staring at her, unsure if this was delirium or a confession long buried. The news spread through the hospital corridors like wildfire. Within hours, detectives were standing at Sarah's bedside, notepads in hand, their faces tense with expectation. Her two children, Lily, age 7, and Noah, age 5, had been killed in what police had long ruled a tragic house fire. Everyone thought it was an accident, the result of faulty wiring. But now, the survivor of that same fire, the mother who had lain in a coma for months, was awake and ready to speak. Sarah's voice shook as she whispered, "It wasn't an accident. Someone set that fire. And I saw who." The room went silent. The lead detective leaned closer, careful not to scare her. "Sarah, who was it?" Her eyes welled with tears as she forced the words out. "It was someone we trusted. Someone who smiled at my children and then killed them." Sarah's hands trembled as she clutched the thin hospital blanket. Her voice was raw, like every word was tearing through her throat. "The night of the fire. I woke up to the smell of smoke," she whispered. "At first, I thought it was just the heater. But then I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Someone was inside our house." The detectives exchanged quick glances. "I ran to Lily and Noah's room," Sarah continued, tears streaming down her face. "They were still asleep. I tried to wake them up, but then I saw him, standing in the doorway." "Who, Sarah? Who was in the doorway?" the detective urged. Her lips quivered, and for a moment, it looked like she couldn't bring herself to say the name. Finally, she whispered, "It was my brother-in-law, Mark." Gasps filled the room. The nurse froze mid-step. Mark, her late husband's younger brother, had been the one who spoke at the funeral, crying the loudest, insisting on helping Sarah's recovery. He was the one everyone praised for being such a supportive uncle. Now, Sarah was accusing him of murder. Detective Harris leaned forward, his voice steady but sharp. "Sarah, are you absolutely certain? You're saying it was Mark, your brother-in-law?" Sarah's chest rose and fell rapidly. "I'll never forget his face." The firelight lit him up. He was holding a gas can. The nurse in the corner covered her mouth, horrified. Sarah's voice cracked. I froze. He looked right at me, like he wanted me to see. Then everything went black. The smoke must have overtaken me. When I woke up here, they told me my children didn't make it. Detective Harris scribbled notes, then asked carefully, "Do you know why Mark would do this?" Sarah shut her eyes, and images flooded back, arguments she'd overheard, the jealousy that seeped from Mark whenever he talked about her husband's success. He hated his brother. He always thought Daniel stole everything from him, opportunities, money, even me. Her hands gripped the sheets so tightly her knuckles went white. I think I was never supposed to wake up. He wanted all of us gone. The detectives exchanged a grim look. This wasn't just grief talking. This was a lead. And if Sarah was telling the truth, Mark had been living freely for months while hiding the darkest crime imaginable. The very next day, Detective Harris and his partner visited Mark's house. Mark opened the door with a wide, forced smile. He was tall, in his late 30s, with a sharp jawline and neatly combed hair. "Detectives? What's this about?" Harris adjusted his tie. "We're reopening the investigation into the fire. Mind if we ask you a few questions?" For a split second, Mark's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. Of course. Come in. The house was spotless, almost too spotless. No personal warmth, no children's photos, not even a trace of casual clutter. Harris's partner whispered, "This feels staged." As they sat down, Mark poured coffee into pristine white cups, his hands steady but his jaw tight. "So, Mark," Harris began, flipping through his notebook, "where were you the night of the fire?" Mark's answer came too quickly. "At home. Alone. Watching TV. Must have dozed off." Harris tapped his pen. "Interesting. Because your sister-in-law, Sarah, just woke up. And she remembers seeing you at the scene." The mug slipped slightly in Mark's hand, a small splash of coffee hitting the table. His eyes hardened. "She was in a coma for months. You really think her memory is reliable?" Harris leaned closer. "Sometimes the mind protects itself. But when it resurfaces, it can be very clear. Do you have anything to tell us, Mark?" Mark set the mug down and forced a laugh, though it rang hollow. "This is ridiculous. My brother dies, my nephews and niece die, and now you're trying to put this on me?" But Harris had already seen what he needed, the flicker of panic in Mark's eyes, the way his voice cracked when he said ridiculous. Something was very, very wrong. Detective Harris wasn't one to rely solely on instinct. He needed hard evidence. "Let's keep an eye on him," Harris told his partner later that evening. "If he's hiding something, he won't stay quiet for long." So they began surveillance. 2 nights later, Mark's pristine mask started to crack. Instead of staying home like he claimed, he drove out of town to a storage facility on the outskirts. He moved nervously, checking over his shoulder, before entering one of the units. Harris and his partner watched from a distance. "What's he hiding?" the partner muttered. Through binoculars, Harris caught a glimpse, boxes stacked floor to ceiling, and among them, a metal canister with a red warning label, accelerant. The same type used to start house fires. But that wasn't all. Pinned to the wall of the storage unit was a photo, Sarah, his late wife's sister, smiling with her children. A thick black X slashed across each of their faces. Harris's partner whispered, horrified, "This guy isn't just guilty. He's obsessed." Suddenly, Mark's phone rang, and the detectives caught fragments of his conversation. His voice was low but agitated. "They're sniffing around again. No, she shouldn't have woken up. If she talks, everything's ruined." Harris felt the chill creep down his spine. "He's not just covering up," he said grimly. "He's planning something." The next move wasn't about proving Mark's guilt. It was about keeping Sarah alive. The hospital had become a fortress of hushed whispers and watchful eyes. Sarah, still weak from the coma, had no idea that her testimony had just put a target on her back. Detective Harris sat by her bedside, lowering his voice. "Sarah, we believe your brother-in-law, Mark, was involved in the fire. And, possibly much more. You're not safe until we bring him in." Her face went pale. "Mark? No, he's family. He used to babysit the kids when She stopped, her voice breaking. "I know," Harris said firmly, "but he's been hiding evidence. We found accelerants, threats, and surveillance on you. He's not the man you thought." Before Sarah could respond, a nurse entered, smiling too brightly. "Time for a routine check, Ms. Williams." Harris's instincts flared. He glanced at the nurse's ID, it looked slightly off. He rose slowly, hand near his badge. "Which department did you say you're from?" he asked casually. The nurse stiffened. For a split second, her eyes darted toward Sarah, then toward the exit. "Run!" Harris barked, lunging forward. The woman dropped her medical bag, sending syringes scattering, and bolted out the door. Harris chased her into the hallway, but she was quick, weaving past startled patients and staff. By the time security locked down the floor, she was gone. Back in Sarah's room, Harris returned, chest heaving. "That wasn't a nurse," he said grimly. "That was one of Mark's people." Sarah trembled, clutching the hospital blanket. For the first time, she understood Mark didn't just want silence. He wanted her gone. That night, the hospital floor was unusually quiet. The guard who normally sat by Sarah's door had been called away temporarily, at least that's what the nurse told her. But Sarah couldn't shake the chill crawling up her spine. She stared at the ceiling, trying to ignore the beeping of the monitor, when she heard it, a soft creak of the door. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice shaky. A shadow slipped inside. For a second, she thought it was another nurse, but then she saw his face. Mark. He closed the door slowly, his expression calm, almost smug. "You should have stayed in that coma, Sarah," he said coldly, pulling on a pair of black gloves. Her pulse spiked, panic seizing her. She reached for the call button, but Mark's hand shot out, ripping the cord from the wall. "You always had to meddle, didn't you? Couldn't let things go." "Why?" Sarah choked out, tears welling. "They were children, Mark. My babies. Why would you do this?" His jaw tightened, and for the first time, a flicker of something, guilt, rage, crossed his face. "They weren't supposed to be in the house," he spat. "It was about your husband. About the debts. He owed the wrong people, and you—" He stopped, realizing he'd said too much. Sarah froze. She had confirmation now, Mark was the killer. But she also realized something worse. He wasn't planning on letting her leave the room alive. At that moment, a loud bang echoed from the hallway. The door burst open, Detective Harris, weapon drawn. "Step away from her, Mark." Mark spun, snarling, but Harris was faster. In seconds, Mark was pinned to the floor, cursing and thrashing as handcuffs clicked shut. Sarah sobbed with relief, her whole body trembling. Harris leaned close and said gently, "You're safe now. We got him." But Sarah's mind whirled. She remembered Mark's words, "It was about your husband." If Mark had been working against them. Had her husband known all along? Sarah sat in the hospital bed, her hands trembling as she replayed Mark's words in her head. It was about your husband. About the debts. When Detective Harris returned, she demanded answers. What did he mean? What did my husband have to do with this? Harris hesitated. Then he pulled out a folder and placed it on her lap. Inside were documents, photographs, and bank records. Her stomach turned. Her husband, David, had been secretly gambling for years. The debts were astronomical. To pay them off, he had cut deals with dangerous men. But when he couldn't keep up, they decided to send a message. Mark, the neighbor Sarah had always trusted, had been their enforcer. The house fire that killed her children wasn't an accident. It wasn't random. It was meant for her husband. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks as Harris spoke softly. David knew he was in too deep. But instead of coming to us, instead of protecting his family, he tried to cover it up. And your children, they paid the price. Sarah felt her heart shatter all over again. The man she had loved, the father of her children, had indirectly led to their deaths. When David finally entered her hospital room, eyes bloodshot and face pale, Sarah couldn't look at him the same way. You knew, she whispered, her voice breaking. You knew and you didn't protect them. He collapsed beside her bed, begging for forgiveness. But Sarah turned away, clutching her chest, whispering through her tears. You're not the man I married. And I will never forgive you. As Mark was sentenced and her husband faced trial for financial crimes, Sarah decided to tell her children's story to the world. Not just to seek justice, but to make sure no other family suffered the same betrayal. The last line she wrote in her journal was simple, but powerful. The truth came too late to save them, but it will save others.